Welcome back to the channel. Now, back in 2024, I reviewed countless boards, but somehow I did not review a full-sized keyboard. So, for the start of 2025, for the very first video, we'll be starting with the QK101. So let's not waste any time, I'm pretty excited to get back onto videos. I had a pretty nice break to take my mind off keyboards, just spend some time with friends and family. I might have a Japan vlog with Squashy and a bunch of friends coming out soon, so stay tuned to the channel. Now, the QK101 is a full-sized keyboard by Keys. I haven't reviewed or used a full-sized keyboard for a really long time, so this board felt really big and really massive to me. The case itself is made from aluminum and the one I have is in grey. It has a really nice and smooth touch to it. The one I have is anodized, which gives it that really smooth and elegant look to the board. Now, when it comes to Keys keyboards, I would say there are three main categories. We have Collabs first of all, which is a more premium and fine-tuned brand focused on sound and the overall aesthetic of the board. And then we have the Neo series. It's a pretty recent one, but it's focused on the essence of the keyboard itself. So it's focused on foamless builds. And last but not least, we have the QK series, which I would say is focused on function and a more budget price point. So do keep that in mind while we're going through the review in case certain things don't meet your expectations. Let's move on to the features of the board, starting with the screen that actually changes the layout of our board. We saw this screen placement on the QK Mark II and I really like the placement of it because, to be honest, I don't really use the keys that are being replaced, so having a screen does make more sense to me. Before we move on to mounting, I do want to bring some attention to the back of the board, which looks stunning with the mirror finish it has. The details and accents that pair really nicely with the board. We also have this little badge / cover that houses your wireless dongle. And on top of that, some magnetic accents that you can play around with around the circular badge. The circular badge will also be fully customizable. Keys will be releasing the design files for anyone to just create their very own badge. So in terms of function and aesthetic, I would say this isn't any letdown. It looks absolutely stunning, paired with some of the more modern day features. There are more features, but I'll get more into it while we're building. So to start with our build, let's start with our PCB. We have a pretty standard PCB, mainly south-facing hot swap sockets with the option for unique layout or keys. We have the magnetic daughterboard connection for both our daughterboard and the screen, which makes building extremely convenient. Now comes mounting. We actually have two different mounting options for this board. We actually have gasket mount and top mount. I'll first start off with the top mount. There is an aluminum plate which will pair perfectly with it, and I will not be using any foam. Also, bear with me, I don't have enough switches to fill up a full-size keyboard, but I will be using the FJ400s for the switches that you will hear. And honestly, I would have loved to have some sort of a gunmetal grey or like a black set of keycaps. Gives it that really sleeper build look to it, but none of the sets I have support for numpad. So I ended up going with the Osume Matcha keycaps, which I think still came out beautifully. Personally, I do think it handled the build pretty well. There is a very slight ping because there isn't any foam, especially on the top mount. So at the bare minimum, I would recommend having case foam or at least a PCB foam. And as I mentioned at the beginning of the video, the QK series isn't meant to build foamless. It's meant to be built with foam and meant to sound talky and marbly. Which also brings me to the most interesting part of our build. It's a really unique FR4 plate which has foam on the top side of the plate. I believe having foam on top of a plate will emphasize the sound of your switches a little bit more, so your choice of switches will matter when it comes to using this certain plate. So for this build, I'll be running it with all the foam included. We have our PE, case, PCB and plate foam. But I will not be using the PE foam so that we can get a better idea of how this sounds like. We'll also be using the second mounting option, our gasket mount. We actually have double-sided gaskets, so depending on the typing experience you prefer, you would just use a specific side of the gasket. It's a very convenient and great idea. So on our second build, we have a more creamy and thocky sound profile, which I believe QK boards are more well known for. I can definitely feel the dampening that comes from the foam on top of the plate, and it also does provide for an extra soft tapping experience compared to the usual gasket mount that we're used to. You can feel it being a little softer on your fingers. Overall, it's a pretty good keyboard. I can't really find anything wrong with it. The full-size keyboards are really hard to come by, and this definitely meets the standards with the feature it provides. So if you're looking for a full-size keyboard, I'll have it linked down below. And just like that, we have come to the end of the video. Like this video if you enjoyed this video, comment your thoughts on the QK101, and let me know if you want that Japan vlog on the main channel. Aside from that, subscribe if you enjoy my content. I'll see you guys in the next one. Peace!